I didn't know he'd come home this soon.
We should have told him. Why? Why you?
I used to think nothing could break me. Not losing money, not failure, not even death itself. But that night broke something inside me I didn't know could ever be fixed. It was around 9:30 p.m. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that used to make me feel proud. A home, a wife, and a child on the way. We were expecting our first baby, and I was already thinking about names, painting the nursery blue, and learning how to install a baby car seat. Life felt right, until it didn't. I remember the rain that evening. It wasn't heavy but steady enough to make the streets glisten. I came home earlier than usual from work, holding a small bag of her favorite pastries. She had been craving them for weeks, and I wanted to surprise her. I thought it would make her smile. When I walked through the front door, I noticed the lights in the living room were off, but there was a faint glow coming from upstairs. I thought she might already be in bed, maybe watching something or reading. I dropped my keys on the counter and quietly took the stairs, still smiling to myself, thinking about the moment I'd hand her the pastries. But halfway up the stairs, I heard something. A voice. Low, quiet, familiar. Then another voice, older. I froze. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. My father sometimes dropped by unannounced, and maybe he was checking on her since she was pregnant. He'd always been protective, even overly so. But something about the tone in those voices made my stomach twist. It wasn't a normal conversation. It was different. Too soft, too close. I took another step, careful not to make a sound. The voices were coming from the bedroom. The door was slightly open, just enough for the light to spill out onto the hallway. My hand trembled as I reached for it, but I didn't push it open right away. I just stood there, breathing hard, my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then I heard her laugh. It was the same laugh she used to make when she was nervous, the kind that meant she was trying to hide something. And then, silence. I pushed the door open. The first thing I saw was her, my wife, standing beside the bed, in her nightgown, her baby bump showing beneath the thin fabric. Her eyes widened the second she saw me, like she had seen a ghost. And then my father turned around. For a moment, my brain refused to believe what it was seeing. He looked at me like a man caught stealing, his hands frozen midair, eyes wide, guilty. The world around me went quiet. No sound, no movement, just my breathing and the thundering in my chest. I dropped the pastry bag without realizing it. The box hit the floor, scattering crumbs that I would later step on while trying to pick up the pieces of my life. I don't even remember walking fully into the room, but suddenly I was standing there staring at them both. She tried to speak first. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice shaking. But it was exactly what I thought. My father couldn't even look at me. He turned his face away, mumbling something I couldn't hear. The woman I had built my life around was crying, reaching out for me as if touching me would erase what I just witnessed. I stepped back. My knees gave way, and I hit the floor. It wasn't dramatic like in the movies. It was quiet, almost pathetic. I just sank to my knees, staring at the floorboards, trying to understand how two people I trusted most had destroyed everything in one night. All the moments flashed through my mind. The doctor appointments, the baby name talks, the promises. Every smile suddenly felt like a lie. Every "I love you" echoed like mockery. She kept crying, saying, "Please listen to me," but I couldn't. I couldn't even hear her voice anymore. My head was spinning. I looked up at my father, the man I used to admire, the same man who once told me that loyalty is everything. And there he was, standing in front of me, guilty and silent. I don't know how long I sat there. Maybe a minute, maybe 10. But eventually I stood up, and when I did, something inside me shifted. The pain started turning into something else, something darker. I didn't yell. I didn't hit anyone. I just looked at them both, my voice quiet but steady. "Leave," I said. She blinked, confused. "Both of you. Get out of my house." He hesitated, maybe hoping I'd calm down. But the look in my eyes must have told him there was no coming back from this. My father left first, not saying a word. I listened to his footsteps echo down the hall, the front door opening and closing. She stayed, still crying, begging me to understand, but I couldn't. There was nothing left to understand. When she finally left the room, I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the empty wall. The night felt colder. The rain outside had stopped, but inside, everything was storming. I thought about the baby, about how I had no idea what to believe anymore. Was it even mine? I pressed my hands against my face, trying to block out the noise of my own thoughts. I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. Just silence, heavy, endless silence. Then my phone buzzed. A message popped up on the screen from an unknown number. It said, "Now you know, but that's not all she's hiding." The blood in my veins turned cold. I looked around the room, half expecting someone to be watching. The air suddenly felt heavier, almost suffocating. And that's when I realized this betrayal might have only been the beginning. I made upset, disgusted. The message stared back at me, glowing on the phone screen like a cruel joke. "Now you know, but that's not all she's hiding." For a few seconds, I just sat there, motionless. My pulse was pounding so hard it drowned out every other sound. I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or throw the phone against the wall. Who would send that? Who even knew what I had just seen? I looked toward the window. The curtains were half open. The street outside was quiet, but my instincts told me someone was watching. I stepped forward and closed them. My reflection in the glass looked like a stranger, pale, hollow, lost. Another message arrived. If you want the truth, don't confront her yet. Watch her tomorrow morning. I swallowed hard. My first instinct was to ignore it, but curiosity has a way of twisting pain into obsession, and that night I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house felt louder, the ticking of the clock, the faint creak of the wooden floor, even my own breathing. I kept replaying what I saw, what I heard, what I felt, and then that message. What else could she possibly be hiding? By dawn, I had made up my mind. If there was more, I needed to know. Not because I still loved her, but because I couldn't live with questions haunting me for the rest of my life. The next morning, the air felt heavy, like the world itself was holding its breath. I hadn't changed my clothes. My eyes were red from not sleeping. When I heard her car pull up outside, I knew she was back. She entered the house quietly, carrying a small bag. She looked tired, her eyes puffy from crying. For a moment, she froze when she saw me sitting on the couch. We didn't speak. She finally said, "Please, let me explain." But I stayed silent, watching every move she made. She placed the bag on the table, baby vitamins, a few groceries, and a folded receipt that fell out accidentally. The receipt caught my eye. The name on it wasn't hers. It was my father's. "Where did you go last night?" I asked. She hesitated. "To my friend's house." I needed time to think. I picked up the receipt slowly, holding it between my fingers. "Your friend's name is David, right? Or is it Dad?" Her face went pale. The silence that followed was almost cruel. I could see her eyes flicker toward her phone on the counter. Maybe she was expecting another message. Maybe from him. Before I could say more, my own phone buzzed again. Another text. "She's lying. Follow her today. You'll see." She didn't seem to notice I'd received anything. She just kept trying to talk, but her words were like static in my ears. I wasn't sure what was real anymore. Her tears, her explanations, or the cold truth behind that message. I needed proof. I needed closure. So when she left for her doctor's appointment later that morning, I followed her. The city was busy, horns blaring, people rushing, the kind of noise that usually makes time pass faster. But for me, it slowed everything down. Every stoplight, every turn she took felt like another heartbeat before the truth. She stopped at a small cafe, not the hospital. I parked a few spaces behind and waited, trying to steady my breathing. A few minutes later, a car pulled up beside her, silver sedan, and out stepped a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't my father. He looked nervous, checking around before walking inside. She followed him in. My hands clenched around the steering wheel. I wanted to storm in there, but something in me said, wait, if that mysterious message was right again, I needed to know how deep this went. I waited 15 minutes, then 20, then 30. Finally, they came out, walking close but not touching. He handed her an envelope. She looked around before slipping it into her purse. Then out of nowhere, she turned her head straight toward my car. Our eyes met for a split second. Her face changed. The soft sadness from before vanished, replaced with something else, panic. She got into her car and sped away. I followed, but this time, instead of heading home, she drove toward the edge of town, to a quiet street near an abandoned storage building. When she parked, I stayed hidden a short distance away. She got out, looked around and walked toward one of the units. A few moments later, the man from the cafe appeared again, unlocking the door. She went inside, and that's when I noticed something that made my stomach twist. There was already another car parked nearby. A black SUV, tinted windows, engine still running. My phone buzzed again. "Now you're close, but if you go inside, you'll see what she's truly done." I looked around trying to find whoever was sending these messages, but there was no one, only the sound of the wind and the faint hum of the SUV engine. Something didn't feel right. Was this a setup? Was I walking into something worse than betrayal? I stepped out of my car and slowly approached the building. The closer I got, the louder the tension in my chest became. I could hear faint voices from inside, hers and the man's, arguing quietly. Then suddenly, the black SUV door opened. Two men stepped out, both wearing dark jackets, moving fast toward the same door she had entered. I froze behind a dumpster, watching as one of them knocked sharply. The door opened. She appeared, startled. Before she could say a word, they grabbed her arm. The man she was with shouted something, but one of the men pushed him back. "What's going on?" I whispered to myself, peeking from behind the bin. One of the men flashed something, a badge I think, before leading her out. She looked terrified, her eyes darting in every direction. They put her in the SUV and drove off, and just like that, she was gone. I ran to the spot where her car was parked. The door was still open, keys in the ignition. On the passenger seat, the envelope she'd received earlier was half tucked under a scarf.
I pulled it out. Inside was a photograph, a sonogram, but it wasn't hers. The name printed on the label was another woman's, and below it, a note written in messy handwriting. You were never supposed to find out. I stared at it, my mind spinning out of control. Was this all connected? Who was that man? Why did the police, or whoever they were, take her away? Before I could even process what I was holding, my phone vibrated one last time. No name, no number, just another message. Now it's your turn. And at that moment, I realized, whatever game she was part of, it had just found me.
For days, I couldn't look at her the same way. Every time Elena spoke, every time she smiled, I saw that room again. Her hand on my father's shoulder, her soft laughter echoing where trust should have lived. But instead of shouting or leaving, I stayed silent. Silence became my weapon. She thought my quiet meant forgiveness. My father thought it meant defeat. Neither of them knew it was the calm before the storm. I started acting like the man they used to know. Gentle, collected, responsible. I offered to take Elena to her appointments again. I brought her food, made her laugh a little, pretended to care. I even visited my father, saying I wanted to make peace for the baby's sake. They both believed me, and that's when I started recording. Every call, every meeting, every moment they slipped and mentioned their guilt, I had it all saved. I waited until I had enough to destroy the image they both hid behind. Then I made my move. It was a Friday night when I invited them both over. Elena was hesitant, but I told her I wanted to have a family dinner, something calm, a chance to heal. My father arrived first, walking into my house like nothing ever happened. His cologne filled the air before he even spoke. "Good to see you, son," he said with that same arrogant tone he used when lying came easy. I smiled. "Good to see you too, Dad." Elena came in minutes later, wearing a soft pink dress that made her glow under the light. She looked nervous but still held that hopeful look, the kind people wear when they think they're getting away with something. I served them dinner. For a while we talked about the baby, the weather, meaningless things. They relaxed, both of them thinking I was trying to move on. Then I stood up, holding my glass. To family, I said. They both raised theirs, uncertain but following my lead. And that's when I hit play. The living room speakers came alive with their own voices. Elena's soft laughter, my father's whisper, her saying he'll never know, he trusts us too much. My father froze. Elena's glass slipped from her hand and shattered on the floor. For the first time they looked at me the way I had looked at them, broken, betrayed, speechless. "You said I'd never know," I said quietly, looking at both of them. "But I did. Every word, every meeting. I was just waiting for you to hand me your truth." My father's face went pale. "Michael, listen." "No," I cut him off. "You listen. You taught me everything about success, about control, but I guess you forgot to teach me what kind of man betrays his own son." Elena was crying now, begging me to stop, saying it wasn't what it looked like. I turned to her, my voice steady. "You were carrying my child, and you still made room in your heart for him. Tell me, Elena, when you looked at me, what did you see? A fool? A backup plan?" She shook her head, trembling. "I made a mistake, I swear." I laughed, a sound that didn't feel like mine. "Mistake? No, Elena. Mistakes are accidents. You chose this." Then I took a deep breath and turned to the door. Because outside, parked right on the street, were two of my father's business partners, people he respected, people who respected him. I had sent them messages earlier, inviting them to a reconciliation dinner and asking them to stop by later for a surprise. Right on cue, there was a knock at the door. I opened it with a calm smile. "Gentlemen, come in," I said. They walked in, confused but curious, and then they heard the recording still playing from the speaker. The looks on their faces said everything. My father's empire was built on respect. In one night, I took that from him. He tried to speak, but the words didn't come. The room had gone quiet again, except for the faint sound of Elena's sobs. I looked at them one last time and said, "You both took something from me I'll never get back, but at least now the world sees you the way I do." Then I walked out. I didn't run. I didn't shout. I didn't even look back. By morning, everything had already spread. His business partners withdrew their trust. Clients vanished. Elena packed her things and left without saying goodbye. A few weeks later, the baby was born, and though I didn't go to the hospital, I heard she named him after me. Maybe guilt does strange things to people, but I never sought revenge for the baby's sake. I did it because they needed to feel what I felt, powerless. And when I finally stood over the city skyline one night, watching the lights flicker below me, I realized something. I wasn't broken anymore. I was free. I took a deep breath, turned off my phone, and whispered to myself, "Forgiveness isn't peace. Sometimes it's the cleanest form of revenge."